Hey, Joe Walsh here. It should be clear by now that neither political party believes in limited government. We'll talk about it when Freedom returns at 5.
Good morning, Dan and Amy, and consternation over the president's decision not to release the Adam Schiff memo, at least not yet, sending it back for another review on sources and methods, information allegedly disclosed in the Schiff memo. Of course, Representative Adam Schiff disagrees, and he made his case on Face the Nation, among other places, over the weekend. And then he also made this rather bold statement that his memo is going to have to back up because it certainly seems at odds with the information that's been released or unearthed or discovered to this point about the FISA application to get the warrant to surveil Carter Page. Here's Adam Schiff on everything he's seen and how that informs his view of what the FBI did in the matter.
Is it your representation to the nation, sir, that everything that the FBI did in the process of obtaining that surveillance warrant on Carter Page absolutely followed proper protocol, every evidentiary standard was met, and there was nothing askew about that warrant ever?
Major, there's nothing askew about that warrant that I can see. And if the Republicans were really concerned about this, because everything that I have seen, the FBI acted completely appropriately, they would have invited the FBI before our committee, as I urged them to do.
For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by our friend Joe Trippi, former campaign manager for Howard Dean, author of the book The Revolution Will Not Be Televised, CNN contributor. Joe, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Great to be with you.
So that's a pretty big statement that Adam Schiff is making based on everything that is bouncing around in the public arena about what the FBI knew about the dossier, the sources of it, the substantiation of it, as well as the relationship with Carter Page. I mean, do you worry that he's overstating the case that he can make based on the evidence he has as contained in the memo that may be released?
Well, I think he's got more credibility than Devin Nunes, but me personally, I'm sure there may be Republicans who won't see it that way, but I do think it speaks to the reason, the need to release that memo, so that this is the whole thing that the president and everybody was saying: release the Nunes memo. Everybody deserves to know the truth. Okay, release this memo, and let's find out whether Adam Schiff is cooking something or speaking the truth again. So that's the whole double standard that's clearly going on here. I mean, regardless that he didn't. The president decided he was going to release the Nunes memo before he ever read it or heard from the FBI, and now it's all, geez, he's really got to send it back. We got to make sure, right?
But
I just think it's duplicitous.
But just to be fair too, let's recall that in the interest of transparency, Adam Schiff didn't want transparency. They didn't want either memo released. At least House Republicans have said both memos should be released, and I agree with you that the president should sign off on that as well.
Look, there's enough hypocrisy going around. Yes, Democrats didn't want the Nunes memo released, but once it was, the people deserve to know both sides and to get the to get these two memos. I mean, it was either there shouldn't be any memos, and the FBI should come before the committee to answer questions and to get to the bottom of this, or there should be two. But there shouldn't be a one-sided cooked memo that's that no matter whether it was cooked or not, there are Democrats, independent. There are people throughout the country that won't believe the Nunes memo wasn't cooked. Right? I mean, it's just you have to release both.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, you're well connected. Are any sources telling you what's in Schiff's 10-page memo?
No, and I haven't.
You're not well connected.
I may be connected, but I'm not that well connected.
You don't want to be that well connected.
Yeah, exactly.
But anything that you've heard, I mean, even if you're looking at it with a jaundiced eye, anything that you've heard and what's been revealed so far, not just in the Nunes memo, but decision-making at FBI, conflicts of interest ostensibly at both FBI and Department of Justice, anything that troubles you?
There's not a whole lot about this that makes tremendous sense to me, right, and to a lot of people. I mean, Carter Page was on the FBI and the intelligence community's target list to look at and sort of get to the bottom of it. Since 2013, and so it seems to me an unlikely place, if I were Devin Nunes and the Trump administration, an unlikely hill to fight to die on is Carter Page, and whether he was or wasn't somebody the FBI should have been following. They'd been looking at him since 2013 for his activities in Russia, where he had claimed at the time that he was an advisor to the Kremlin in 2013. And so once someone like that comes into association with a president inside his a presidential candidate inside his campaign, it would seem logical to me that we would want our FBI and intelligence community to take a look and make sure that he wasn't working on behalf of the Russians. I don't know that he was or wasn't. That's what's being investigated. But it sure seems that it makes tremendous sense, and that's why I do think that we may find out that the Adam Schiff memo is closer to reality than the Nunes memo, because there were substantially other things that were in that FISA warrant that had to do with well beyond any dossier and how important the dossier was or wasn't in triggering a look at Carter Page.
It is worth noting, though, Page was from 2013 present. Page was alternatively somebody that they were interested in and somebody that they were working with. Talking about the FBI, Carter Page just last week said he has never communicated with President Trump in any form. Now, he could be lying, but he hasn't been charged with lying or anything else for that matter, despite the extensive surveillance on him. And that whole story about him getting some stake in the privatization of Rosneft, this Russian oil firm, is almost completely without substantiation. So, I mean, in terms of like Carter Page being this player, it sounds like Carter Page maybe wanted to be a player, but there's not a lot of evidence to support the fact that to support the contention that he was.
No, I agree. I would agree with you, Dan, that it doesn't sound to me like he's a significant part of this, which is kind of one of those strange things. Hey, the Trump folks saying that he wasn't anything important, was never really part of the campaign, and then sort of now it's so important that the FBI was looking at him. It doesn't really speak to anything. It's not. I don't think in the end we're going to find out it was a very big part of the investigation, or that the dossier had much to do with why they were suddenly looking at Carter Page again. That's why get the memos out, let the investigation go on, leave Mueller alone, let him proceed with his investigation, and if there's nothing there, I'll be one of the first people out there to say, okay, if Mueller says there's nothing there, there's nothing there. But I don't think we're going to get the same reaction if he says there is something there from the White House and way too many Republicans.
I wanted to ask you about something else before we let you get on with your busy day. Over the weekend, President Trump defended his former aide who's accused of domestic violence. Do you think he handled that situation properly?
No, I don't. I think it was one of the worst handling of a situation like that I can remember. Going back through several administrations. I mean, it's just not. It's not clear to me how a chief of staff would have allowed this to go on for a year. And I think that's what I'm not saying that the president himself was aware of this. But somebody, clearly General Kelly was, at least it's back in the fall. And just unbelievable that he didn't recognize the importance of dealing with it then, quickly, firmly, and if he had, that would have been seen as a plus for the White House, that they responded quickly. Now it's becoming, and then I think where it did go bad is when the president was tweeting, and Kelly was issuing statements about how they, how honest and professional and how great a job he had done, and feeling bad for him without really giving any empathy towards the women who had alleged the abuse.
Do you think General Kelly apparently offered to tender his resignation? That hasn't happened. Do you think this is something Kelly should resign over?
No, I mean, me personally, I think that first of all, he should serve as long as the president wants him to, and I think it's I know there's a lot of questioning about whether he's really the adult in the room that many had hoped he was, but I think for the continuity of the White House, he was able to stabilize the place a lot more than any of the other. Probably it's been more stable under him than not. But I'm not sure you can stabilize this White House with the president being the president. So I think this shows a glaring error on his part, and hopefully he's learned from it, that he's got to protect the president on things like this, not be loyal to people who are or have allegiance to him within the White House.
He is CNN contributor Joe Trippi, former campaign manager for Howard Dean, author of the book The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. Joe, thanks for joining us as always. Appreciate it.
Great to be with the two of you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.